Why do fireflies light up at night?
It is believed that fireflies, beetles also known as lightning bugs, flash signals to one another to show their locations in the dark and to indicate their willingness to mate. Fireflies have organs near the ends of their bodies that convert a special biochemical into flashes of heatless light. This ability of living things to produce their own light is called bioluminescence.
What plants produce some of the smallest seeds?
Orchids produce the smallest seeds. They measure no more than 0.04 inches, 1 millimeter, in length. And 1 million orchid seeds might weigh less than an ounce, less than 28 grams. Seed size has no bearing on the size of the plant that grows from it. Orchids grow to a larger size than many plants that have much larger seeds. And a huge redwood tree begins as a tiny seed no more than 1/16 of an inch, 1.6 millimeters, long.
What is a food chain?
Each animal in a predator-prey situation is a link in a food chain, which is a way of looking at the relationships among plants and animals that guarantee the survival of all. Every food chain begins with the sun, which provides the energy that makes plant life possible. The next link in the chain is a plant, which passes on the energy of the sun when it is eaten by the next link in the chain, a mouse, let's say, which passes energy on once again when it is eaten by the next link, a fox, perhaps, and so on. Because most plant-eating animals and most meat-eating animals have more than one food source. Many scientists look at the relationships among them as a food web, rather than a food chain. A diagram showing a food web indicates the variety of foods eaten by a rabbit as well as the many different predators for whom a rabbit is prey.
Why do I have to be nice to people?
With billions of people crowded onto one planet, it is critical that we treat each other with basic decency and respect so we can get along with one another. One basic rule of behavior, called the Golden Rule, has helped people do this, century after century. That rule states that we should treat others in the way we would like to be treated ourselves.
Why must I always wear a helmet when riding a bike?
While riding bicycles is a lot of fun, it is important to remember that bikes are not just toys. They are machines that can sometimes be involved in accidents that result in injury. So all bike riders as well as inline skaters and scooter riders must follow certain rules for their own safety and the safety of others. Bicyclists have to follow some of the same traffic laws that people who drive cars do, like stopping at stop signs and obeying traffic lights. But bike riders also have their own special set of safety rules. They have to make sure that their bikes have reflectors in order to ride safely at night. They can't let other people ride with them like on bicycle. Handlebars because that threatens their balance and could lead to accidents. One of the most important of all bicycling safety rules is wearing a protective helmet. Head injuries are the leading cause of death in bicycle crashes. About 300 children die in bike accidents each year. Another 17,000 to 18,000 children in bike accidents suffer brain injuries that sometimes cause very serious and even lifelong problems. So it doesn't matter where you will be riding or for how long, you should always wear your helmet. Accidents are called accidents because they are unexpected and can happen at any time. If your friends don't wear helmets when you bicycle together, teach them by your wise example. In the United States, bicycle helmets save one life every day and prevent one head injury from happening every 4 minutes.
How are clothes made from a sheep's coat?
Wild sheep were tamed or domesticated about 7,000 years ago. But for a long time they were raised mostly for the milk that the females, called ewes, produced, for their meat, and for their skins. It was not until much later that people figured out how to use the long, curly hair, or fleece, of some sheep to make thread and weave it into cloth. Early on, men and women learned that they did not need to kill sheep to use their woolly coats. If they sheared, or removed, the fleece once a year, it would grow back time and again. Today, some breeds of sheep are raised for their meat, while others with long, soft hair are raised for their fleece. In about a minute, a shearer can remove the entire coat of a sheep with electric clippers. The fleece from a single sheep can weigh up to 20 pounds, or about 9 kilograms. After the fleece is removed, it is cleaned and combed so that all of its fibers are arranged in the same direction. Next, the fibers are overlapped and twisted together into long threads that can be woven in a crisscross pattern on a loom to make fabric. The woolen cloth is then cut into pieces and sewn together to make clothes.
Did you ever notice how being out in the sun seems to make more freckles appear?
Faint freckles become more noticeable when they are exposed to sunlight because skin with more melanin tans quickly.
How far can birds fly?
Some birds go very short distances in their migrations. The blue grouse, for example, lives in the mountains in North America and flies less than a mile down to lower, warmer altitudes for the winter months. That's one extreme. Another extreme are the long-distance flyers like the Arctic terns. These birds hold the distance record for flight. They've been known to fly from their summer home in the Arctic to a winter spot in the Antarctic, covering distances of around 10,000 miles, 16,100 kilometers. And in the spring they go back the other way. The long-tailed jaeger flies more than 5,000 miles. 8,050 kilometers, in each direction of its migratory flight. And even the tiny barn swallow has been known to cover 6,000 miles, 9,660 kilometers, round trip.
What is a black hole?
A black hole is an invisible region of space that is thought to have such intense gravity that not even light can escape. Scientists believe that a black hole is created when a giant star collapses in upon itself as it does. A star lives as long as it can burn fuel. The burning of fuel acts as a counterforce against gravity. Without that counterforce, a star's gravity would cause it to collapse in on itself. So when that fuel runs out, gravity takes over and crushes the star. If the star is large enough and has a strong enough force of gravity, it will become a black hole when it collapses. While the existence of black holes can't be proven by direct observation, because they are invisible, their effects on light and matter which are pulled inside and disappear can be seen. Scientists have discovered evidence of several black holes in our galaxy, the Milky Way. And they believe there may be millions more that they haven't yet identified.
Why do little kids ride tricycles instead of bikes?
The triangular shape of a tricycle, with its three wheels spread apart, is much more stable than a regular bicycle, which balances on two aligned wheels. The tri-3 and bi-2 before cycle refers to the number of wheels each vehicle has. Tricycles suit young children well, with larger heads and undeveloped muscles. Little ones lack the coordination and balance needed to ride regular bikes. But as soon as they can learn to pedal, children can ride a tricycle, turning leg power into wheel power. A tricycle is built for stability and not for speed. Its pedals are attached to a sprocket. In the center of its large front wheel, which moves around once for each completed pedal turn. So the larger the front wheel of a tricycle, the faster it will go, but it cannot be so large that young legs cannot reach the pedals. This design makes a tricycle unlike a regular bike, which has chain-driven sprockets that move its wheels a lot faster than its rider's feet. Tricycles are also easier for little ones to steer and turn because they are pulled forward by the movement of their front wheels. Regular bikes are powered by their rear wheels.
Why is the sky blue?
The white light of the sun consists of many wavelengths. When seen separately, each wavelength corresponds with a different color. The air molecules and particles of matter that make up our atmosphere scatter some of the sun's light as it travels to Earth. Especially the shorter wavelengths that give us the color blue. Coming to us from all angles in the sky, these light waves make the sky appear blue.
Why do some flowers smell like perfume?
Different chemicals in plants and flowers called essential oils give them their special scents. Flowers have fragrances so they can attract the creatures they need for cross-pollination. Some of the insects and other animals that feed from flowers have keen senses of smell. Bees, for instance, have sensitive odor detectors in their antennae, so most bee flowers are scented. Flowers that open only at night are often strongly scented. To help the creatures that feed from them like moths find them in the dark. Not all flowers have pretty scents, though. Some flowers actually smell like rotten meat or other decaying matter in order to attract flies. Flies usually lay their eggs in decaying materials because that's what hatched fly larvae. The immature stage of a fly, feed on, therefore. Flies are drawn to plants that look and smell, to the fly, anyway, like garbage. Bats that feed on plants are also attracted to flowers that have what we would consider unpleasant scents.
What are some of the different kinds of clouds?
The different conditions of the atmosphere in which clouds form give them their special characteristics and shapes. The many different cloud types fall into three basic categories: low, middle, and high clouds. Cirrus clouds, which are made of ice crystals, form high in the sky amidst very cold air. They often appear thin and wispy. Stratus clouds form low to the ground. Gray in color, they can often be found in low, coastal areas. White, fluffy cumulus clouds, also found fairly low, dot blue skies during fair weather. Some middle cloud types are altocumulus and altostratus. Nimbus clouds are storm clouds. They appear dark because the water droplets, or ice crystals, that form them have grown large enough for gravity to eventually force them to fall to Earth. When water droplets are small they reflect light. But when they grow large they absorb light and appear darker. Rain clouds can be low and flat-looking or high and towering. The towering, anvil-shaped rain clouds are called cumulonimbus. And these clouds are responsible for really bad weather like thunderstorms, hailstorms, and tornadoes.
What causes a burp?
When you get food and drink into your airway, problems occur. But when too much air enters your digestive system, it's not a big deal. It just comes back up in the form of a burp. Sometimes a person takes in gulps of air when he or she eats or drinks too fast. Gum chewing can also lead to swallowed air. At other times, the food or drink like soda pop, for example, is responsible for the burp. Filled with carbon dioxide gas to make it bubbly, soda releases air once it's in your stomach.
Which animal is the most intelligent?
Ask 5 scientists to list the most intelligent animals, and you'll get 5 different lists. Most experts believe that humans are the most evolved, complex, intelligent animals, but there are some people who question this. Part of the problem in determining the most intelligent animals is that there are several different kinds of intelligence: the ability to communicate, to adapt to the environment, and to solve problems. And scientists have always struggled to learn how an animal's mind works when communication between animals and humans is so limited. Many studies have shown that primates are the most intelligent animals. The primate family includes human beings as well as chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, baboons, gibbons, and monkeys. Those animals, with chimps at the top of the list, hold the top 6 spots on biologist Edward O. Wilson's list of the 10 most intelligent animals aside from humans. Primates have large, complex brains. And they can build complicated cultures and, to some degree, control their environment. They can communicate with others of their species and develop language skills. Several marine animals, including the killer whale and many dolphin species, have been listed as some of the most intelligent animals on the planet. Elephants and pigs are also believed to be highly intelligent.
Why does everyone look different?
Genes inherited from your parents decide how you look. They determine the color of your eyes, skin, hair, and so much more. They decide how your face will look, how your body will be shaped, and how tall you will grow. There are thousands and thousands of these influential genes inside each one of us. When you first began, a sperm cell from your father carrying half the genes that you would inherit fertilized an egg cell from your mother, which had the other half. These 2 sets of genes contained all the information needed to create a new human being. So the genes you inherited from your mother gave you some of your features, while the genes you got from your father gave you others. Or their genes may have combined to give you traits that are controlled by many genes. The random mix of genes explains why you may resemble your parents but still have a special look all your own. And it also explains why brothers and sisters can look so different from each other. People from all over the world may look very different from one another, too. Some have very dark skin and curly hair. Others have almond-shaped eyes and dark, straight hair. Still others have light skin, hair, and eyes. The ancestors of these people came from different parts of the world, where distinct genes not shared by other people were inherited and passed on. Still, the number of genes that make people of the world look different is very small compared to the huge number that we all share as human beings.
How many different kinds of elephants are there?
Here are two species of the elephant, the largest of the land animals. Both have descended from the ancient, extinct mammoth and mastodon. The African elephant is a good deal bigger than the Asian elephant. An African male can reach a height of 13 feet. 4 meters, at the shoulder and weigh more than 8 tons, 16,000 pounds, or 7,264 kilograms. In comparison, an Asian male can reach 10 feet, 3 meters. At the shoulder and weigh about 6 tons, 12,000 pounds, or 5,448 kilograms. Another difference between the two species is the size of their tusks. The elongated pair of upper teeth that the animals use for digging up roots and other food and for fighting. In African males they can measure more than 10 feet, 3 meters, and weigh up to 200 pounds. 91 kilograms, each, while in Asian males they can reach a length of 6 feet, 1.8 meters. African females have tusks, but Asian females do not. The ears of the two species differ also. African elephants have very large ears, which they flap to cool themselves. One ear can measure 42 inches, 107 centimeters, across. Asian elephants, on the other hand, have much smaller ears. Other differences between the species include trunk size and shape. African elephants have two long finger-like lips on the ends of their trunks while Asian elephants only have one. In addition, the trunks of Asian elephants are usually shorter and covered with smoother skin. The back of an Asian elephant is a bit humped, unlike the smooth back of its African cousin. Asian elephants are thought to have the better nature of the two species, being more trainable and even-tempered.
What is an only child?
An only child is a child who has no brothers or sisters. For a long time, parents and experts on raising children worried that only children would not be as well adjusted in adulthood because they had no brothers or sisters to relate to and share things with as they matured. Some people feared that as adults, only children would be antisocial and selfish. But studies have shown that none of this is true, as only children grow up. They share their lives with young friends and relatives. Lots of only children become well-adjusted adults, and many become high achievers.
What is mimicry?
Mimicry is the ability some animals have to resemble another animal so closely that they can fool either their prey or their predators. For example, the beautiful and brightly colored monarch butterfly has a foul taste, and most birds will avoid eating it. The viceroy butterfly, with its similarly colored orange and black wings, looks so much like the monarch that most birds are fooled and will also avoid the viceroy. The American zone-tailed hawk has similar color and body shape to that of a certain kind of vulture. Vultures do not attack live animals, they eat only carrion, which is the flesh of animals that are already dead, so small animals on the ground are not afraid of them. The zone-tailed hawk flies in groups with these vultures, disguising itself among them, and then swoops down on unsuspecting rodents that didn't recognize the hawk in time to scurry away. The red milk snake, which is harmless, has color patterns similar to the deadly coral snake. A potential enemy could easily mistake the milk snake for the coral snake and, thinking it is venomous, leave it alone.
How deep are the oceans?
The ocean floors have shelves, slopes, cliffs, mountains, valleys, and canyons, just like the surface of Earth. So the depth of each ocean varies greatly when measured in different places. The average depth of all the oceans is around 13,124 feet, 4,000 meters. Though the Arctic Ocean is by far the shallowest, along the underwater edges of the continents. In what is called the continental margins, are deep, narrow canyons known as trenches. In these trenches are the ocean's greatest depths. The Pacific Ocean's Mariana Trench extends down 36,198 feet, 11,034 meters, the Atlantic's Puerto Rico Trench reaches 28,374 feet, 8,648 meters, below sea level. The Indian Ocean's Java Trench descends for 25,344 feet, 7,725 meters, and the Arctic's Eurasia Basin reaches 17,881 feet, 5,450 meters, in depth. People can descend to the deepest parts of the oceans only in special vehicles. The deep sea is cold and sunless, and the pressure from the water above is almost crushing. But from ships on the surface, scientists can use sonar, or sound waves, to determine the depth of the seas and the shape of ocean floors. An instrument called an echo sounder sends out sound signals, which travel through water at nearly 1 mile per second. The signals are reflected back to the ship in echoes that show how far away the ocean floor is. The longer the echoes take to reach the ship, the deeper the water.
How many time zones are there in the United States?
The continental United States, meaning the 48 states on the North American continent, which excludes Hawaii and Alaska, is divided into 4 time zones. From east to west, they are Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Each of these time zones is 1 hour apart, with times being successively earlier as you move west. So if it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, it's 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and noon Pacific Time. The Alaska time zone is 1 hour behind Pacific Time, so when it's noon in California, it's 11:00 a.m. in Alaska. Hawaii's time zone for part of the year is 1 hour behind Alaska. Hawaii does not participate in daylight saving time, however, so during that period, from April to October, when most of the U.S. states have set their clocks forward 1 hour, Hawaii stays at standard time and is 2 hours behind Alaska.
What are the 3 branches of the United States government?
When the U.S. Constitution was written in 1787, the people writing it, referred to as the framers of the Constitution, were very concerned with maintaining a balance between the power of the government and the freedoms of the citizens. The framers divided the federal government into 3 branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial. Each branch has its own separate, unique authority, known as the separation of powers. And each branch is limited by the powers of the other 2. This system of checks and balances ensures that no single branch of government has all the control. The executive branch, which is led by the president, also includes the vice president and the cabinet. The cabinet includes the attorney general and such departments as defense, treasury, labor, and agriculture. The legislative branch, called Congress, is responsible for making laws. This branch consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The elected officials in these houses can introduce and debate legislation. But as an example of checks and balances, the bills passed in the Senate and House of Representatives can't become laws until they are signed by the President. The President can veto, or reject, a bill, but if enough people in Congress, at least 2/3, vote to override that veto, the bill can become a law without the President's signature. The judicial branch, headed by the Supreme Court and also including the U.S. courts of Appeals and U.S. District Courts, explains the laws passed by the legislative branch and interprets whether these laws follow the principles laid out in the Constitution. The court system performs extremely important functions: resolving arguments between citizens and determining the guilt and possible punishment of people accused of crimes.
How do migrating birds know how to navigate?
Twice a year, migrating birds vacate their homes to travel hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles over land and over sea to a new residence. Some migratory birds travel to the same exact place year after year. And some are even so punctual as to arrive at the same time year after year.
How do elevators work?
An elevator is any device that moves things or people from one level to another. They are especially important in tall structures like skyscrapers, where climbing stairs to get to top floors would be very difficult. The car of an elevator, in which people ride, is attached to guard rails inside a tall, empty space called a shaft. It is moved by a steel cable that is attached to a large weight that counterbalances it. An electric motor raises and lowers the cable, changing the positions of the car and weight as the elevator moves from floor to floor. Usually posted inside an elevator are numbers that indicate the car's weight limit. An elevator motor cannot do its job if a car is a lot heavier than the weight that balances it. The first elevators in use were not especially safe because once in a while a cable would break, and a car, pulled by gravity, would come crashing down. Safety devices were soon added, though, to keep such disasters from occurring. American inventor Elisha Otis invented the first safety elevator in 1853. Additional ropes attached to cars and powerful metal jaws that grip guard rails keep elevators from falling if their main cables break. Other safety devices keep elevators from moving when their doors are still open and from traveling too fast. Automatic switches in the shaft allow an elevator to hurry past unwanted floors, or to slow and stop when a chosen floor is reached, unlocking its doors to admit and release passengers.
What is a lie?
A lie is a statement that isn't true. It is told on purpose, to make others believe something that is false. Sometimes people tell what are called white lies, which are generally told to avoid hurting someone's feelings. If your grandma asks if you like her cookies, for example, you might say yes even though they tasted like cardboard, while your motives may be pure. It's still best to tell the truth in as gentle a way as possible, or, in the cookie example, to redirect the conversation by pointing out something your grandma makes that you really do like. Most people would rather know they can count on you to give an honest answer than suspect that you might be saying something just to make them feel good.
Will people be cloned someday?
The breakthroughs in cloning technology made by the Roslin scientists and several other scientists since then who have successfully cloned mice, monkeys, and cows have raised new hopes, and fears that the technology to clone a human being is within reach. Some scientists believe that the first successful cloning of a human being will happen before the end of this century's first decade. The method to clone a human will most likely be the same as that used to clone Dolly the sheep. The cloning of mammals and the possibility of cloning a person has sparked many arguments about whether it's right or wrong to conduct such experiments. While some argue that cloning can yield tremendous benefits, others worry that the technology is ripe for abuse. Many politicians and scientists have called for a worldwide ban on human cloning until further research can be conducted. Some countries have agreed and instituted such a ban.
Where does sand come from?
The rock particles that make up soil come in different sizes and are given different names to show this. Sand, often called a grain, is a piece of rock that measures from 0.0024 to 0.08 inches. 0.06 to 2 millimeters, across. Sand results when larger rocks disintegrate, eroded by water, weather, and glaciers. The two greatest deposits of sand on Earth's surface can be found in deserts and on beaches. When soil consists mostly of sand, its large grains cannot hold the water or nutrients needed. For healthy plant growth, one reason you don't see many plants in the desert or on the beach. When you look closely at a handful of sand, you may find that the grains are really many different colors. This is because sand comes from several different kinds of rocks. Sand may appear brown, yellow, white, or even black, when it comes from certain volcanic rock. The sand of some beaches may also have grains made of organic material, the remains of living creatures, like shells and coral instead of rock.
What is a clone?
To understand cloning, we must first understand a few things about cells. All living things, from the simplest to the most complex, are made up of cells. Cells are specialized to perform a variety of functions. There are muscle cells, skin cells, nerve cells, and so on. Cells group together to form tissue, and tissues group together to make organs like the heart, liver, and kidneys. An organism grows and develops through a process called cell division. One cell divides into two. Then each of those two divides again, and so on until eventually, in the case of human beings, trillions of cells have been produced to make up a complete living person. All cells in multicellular organisms contain a nucleus, which acts as the command center of the cell. The nucleus contains all of the organism's genetic material, including the DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, which determines whether a rose will be red or yellow, whether a person will have curly hair or straight. The word clone can refer to a group of cells that share the same genetic material or to two or more complete organisms that are genetically identical. That means that the clone is an exact copy of one of its parents. Whereas we are made up of the combined features of both our parents. Cloning does occur naturally. Simple organisms like bacteria, for example, reproduce asexually. Which means new organisms come from only one parent and share that parent's genetic material. When humans and other animals produce identical twins, those twins are clones of each other, though not of either parent. But the kind of cloning we hear about in school or on the news is engineered by scientists. Scientists have been conducting experiments for years in an attempt to create a complex organism that is a clone of another organism. While they had some success over the years cloning frogs and salamanders, nothing captured the world's attention like the breakthrough scientists made at the Roslin Institute in Scotland in 1996. After 276 failed attempts, a group of scientists led by Ian Wilmut successfully cloned a sheep, named Dolly, the first mammal ever to be cloned. The process used to create the cloned sheep, called somatic cell nuclear transfer, began with an egg cell from one sheep. The scientists destroyed that egg cell's nucleus and then injected the nucleus from the cell of another sheep into the egg cell. With a little encouragement from electronic stimulation, the donated nucleus fused with the egg cell, and the new cell began to divide. The cluster of cells was then implanted into the uterus of the sheep that had provided the egg cell. And 5 months later Dolly was born, an exact replica not of the sheep that had carried her in the womb but of the sheep that had supplied the nucleus. While cloning mammals is very controversial, some scientists argue that it could have many benefits. Under the right circumstances, cloning could be used to increase the population of animals that are listed as endangered species. Cloning also has advantages to livestock farmers, who could use the technology to breed only high-quality animals that produce the most milk or the finest wool.
What happens to our garbage after it's collected?
A garbage truck probably comes to your neighborhood once a week to pick up your family's trash. On other days, garbage trucks are at work in other parts of your city. Sometimes trash that can't be reused or recycled is taken away to an incinerator plant, where it is burned into ash. Most often garbage is taken to a landfill, a huge hole in the ground commonly known as a garbage dump. Both methods of disposal cause problems. Burning garbage creates waste products that enter the air, causing pollution. Landfills use up precious space. There are more than 9,000 in the United States, and are so ugly and smelly that few communities want one located near them. Transporting trash to distant landfills is troublesome and expensive. The best way to handle garbage is to make less of it, developing habits that are not wasteful, and to reuse and recycle the trash that we can't avoid making. Americans produce about 230 million tons of garbage each year. In order to get as much garbage as possible into a landfill, it is crushed and tightly packed into its space. At the end of each day, new trash is covered with a layer of dirt to keep germs from spreading and to keep creatures like rats and flies away. Pipes have to be inserted into landfill sites to allow the escape of gases that are produced when garbage decomposes. If this wasn't done, the gases could explode. Once garbage nears the top of a landfill, the hole is sealed off and covered with tons of dirt. Over time, when decomposition has stopped and all dangerous gases have escaped, the spot can be used for other things. One northern community, for example, built a great sledding hill on top of its landfill.
How does music come from a compact disc?
Not too long ago, music was recorded on a phonograph record, which was the first invention that made a permanent record of sounds that could be played back. Sound vibrations like a voice singing or an instrument playing were changed by a microphone into electrical signals that directed a sharp needle to cut a wiggly groove into a spinning plastic or vinyl record. A record player, with its needle riding lightly in the groove of a revolving record, could reproduce the electrical signals and change them back into sound through its speakers. Today, compact discs, CDs, are used instead of phonograph records to record music. Less than 5 inches across, CDs can hold more music than long-playing, LP, 12-inch records. This capacity is possible because a CD spins very fast as its signals are read. Up to 500 revolutions per minute, LPs make about 33 complete turns per minute. The spiral track of a CD is also very fine, thinner than a human hair, which allows more music to be fit onto its smaller surface. On the bottom side of a CD is a thin metal sheet. Tiny round depressions called pits, which represent sound, fill its spiral track. Just as needles were used to cut grooves into phonograph records, chemicals eat away the metal on CDs to create these pits. A beam of laser light is used instead of a record player needle to change a CD's pitted track back into sound. Unlike ordinary light, which spreads out in all directions once it leaves its source, laser light can be focused with great accuracy. It moves along the track of a CD, and sensors detect the pattern of shiny flat parts, which reflect light back, and pits, which don't. These on and off flashes of reflected light turn into electrical signals. A computer in a compact disc player, which has an enormous memory that stores every possible combination of on and off patterns, converts the signals to musical notes with different pitches and volumes in the player's speakers. And then the music plays. Unlike phonographic sound, which could be impaired by scratched records, dull playing needles, or wobbly turntables, The sound from compact discs is remarkably true to life because such problems don't affect the efficiency of laser beams. A DVD, which stands for Digital Versatile Disc, uses very similar technology to a CD, only DVDs can hold much more data, about 7 times more than a CD. In recent years their outstanding quality have made DVDs increasingly popular. They can hold a full-length movie as well as many added features, like subtitles in multiple languages, commentaries from directors, extra scenes that were deleted from the final version of the movie, and more.
How do I know if I've broken a bone?
Bones break when too much stress is applied by physical forces. Breaks usually occur when a person is injured playing sports, or when he or she is involved in an accident. Bone diseases can also cause breaks. With serious breaks called compound fractures, you know something is wrong because the bone sticks out through the skin, and muscles and other tissue are damaged around it. But a lot of bone breaks are simple fractures, where the bone has broken cleanly instead of splintering, and it doesn't push out through the skin. In such cases it is hard to know if you have broken a bone, or if the pain you're feeling is caused by a pulled muscle or a sprained joint. A fractured bone usually causes a lot of pain, and the injured area may look swollen or be shaped funny. Still, the only way to tell if you have a broken bone for sure is to have it X-rayed. X-rays, short-wave radiation that can pass through flesh but not bone. Leaving a picture on photographic film or plates, can detect a break in a bone. If your bone is broken, the pieces will have to be held together in the right position in order to heal properly, growing back together as before. Sometimes a hard cast or splint is used to keep the injured body part from moving for a few weeks. Some broken bones are held together naturally, by the muscles that surround them. And in serious cases, metal screws, nails, and plates keep the ends of broken bones in place as they heal. Healing time depends on the bone broken and the age of the injured person. The bones of children heal very quickly.
Why weren't you born with better teeth?
One reason could be that you inherit different traits from each of your parents. And sometimes they don't work well together. If you inherited your mother's small jaw, for example, but your father's large teeth, you are going to have crowding problems in your mouth. Your teeth will slope backwards or forwards, or turn, or overlap one another in order to try to fit into their small space. On the other hand, if your teeth are too small for your jaws, you will have big gaps between your teeth. These are just a few of the problems that an orthodontist tries to correct. Try to remember that wearing braces for a few years when you are Young will give you a lifetime of healthier, good-looking teeth. Also remember to brush and floss more often when you have braces, because they trap food particles against your teeth.
Why does some gas smell worse than others?
The gas expelled from our intestines actually contains many different kinds of gases, including nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, and methane. When high concentrations of the sulfur-containing gas hydrogen sulfide are present, your gas has a particularly strong odor. Certain foods, like beans, cabbage, and eggs, contain a lot of sulfur and can result in this smelly gas.
Are all dolphins mammals?
When we refer to dolphins, we usually mean the mammals that are in the same family with whales and porpoises. But there are some types of fish that are also referred to as dolphins. One that is known as mahi-mahi or dorado, and another called pompano dolphin. These fish, popular in sport fishing and as food, do not resemble the mammalian dolphins.
How many countries are there in the world?
There are about 191 countries in the world today. But because the political world is constantly changing, that number never stays the same for very long. For example, in the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, fighting ethnic groups have declared the regions of Serbia and Montenegro separate countries. But until the United States and other nations accept their independence and national borders, the regions will not officially become countries.
Why shouldn't I pick at scabs?
It's hard not to pick at scabs, which sometimes itch and pull and are annoying. But they are there for a good reason. They keep a cut or scrape protected from outside germs while it is healing. New skin cells form on the bottom of a wound first, working their way up to the surface. So the top of a cut or scrape is the last part to be repaired, and the scab will be shed when it is no longer needed. When you pull off a scab before the healing process is done, you may expose the wound to germs again. In addition, you may disrupt the repair process and cause more damage to tissues. Before the cut or scrape is fully healed, leaving you with an unnecessary scar.
Why do I have to be nice to people?
With billions of people crowded onto one planet, it is critical that we treat each other with basic decency and respect so we can get along with one another. One basic rule of behavior, called the Golden Rule, has helped people do this, century after century. That rule states that we should treat others in the way we would like to be treated ourselves.
How did the months of the year get their names?
He months of the year in the Gregorian calendar, used by most of the world. Originated with the ancient Romans, who named the months after gods and goddesses. Important emperors, and in some cases the month's position on the calendar. For example, January is named for Janus, a Roman god. Janus had two faces, one looking into the past and the other into the future. August commemorates the Roman Emperor Octavian, who was known as Augustus Caesar. The names for September through December were all taken from the words for numbers. September, for example, was at one time the 7th month in the calendar. And its name came from the word septem, meaning 7.
Are bats blind?
The expression blind as a bat would indicate that bats are blind. But in fact scientists believe they have fairly good eyesight. Bats are nocturnal creatures, coming out after dark to find insects and other food. Some bats, just like humans, can't see very well in the dark. But they make up for this with a unique navigating system called echolocation. These bats make a series of high-pitched sounds, frequently above the hearing range of humans, that bounce off nearby objects, like rocks, trees, or insects. The echoes of these sounds, when they reach the bat's highly sensitive ears, tell the bat where the object is and even, in the case of insects and other animals, what direction it is moving in.
Why do mosquito bites itch?
With her long, slender mouth parts, a female mosquito pierces the skin of her victim in order to suck its blood. She injects a substance that keeps the blood from clotting, an anticoagulant, before she drinks her fill. This foreign substance in the blood activates the victim's immune system, causing an allergic reaction around the bite. This reaction causes the swelling and itching that drive us crazy.
Why doesn't it hurt when I have my hair or nails cut?
The hair that shows above your skin is composed of dead cells made up of a tough protein called keratin. Toenails and fingernails are also made of keratin. So hair and nails have no feeling above the surface of your skin. They are alive below the skin, though, where their roots are attached to nerves. That is why it hurts when someone pulls your hair, they are tugging at live roots. But having your hair and nails cut doesn't hurt at all.
What is a disability?
The word disabled usually refers to a person who has a physical or mental handicap that keeps him or her from doing certain tasks or makes performing them unusually difficult. Most physical disabilities, like blindness or paralysis, are easily noticed, but many mental disabilities are harder to detect. Mental disabilities can include diseases like schizophrenia, which causes severe disturbances in people's thoughts and emotions. Another category of disability is learning disabilities, like dyslexia, which is a learning disorder that makes reading very difficult because the brain reverses the order of letters and words. A disability can be the result of a disease, an accident, or of genetics, which means that it is a condition that a person is born with. A lot of times disabled people can learn new ways to do things or use special machines or specially trained animals to help them work around their disability. Many disabled people prefer the term differently abled, a description that doesn't divide people into categories like normal and disabled, but addresses the idea that every person has different abilities. In ancient and medieval times, people were frightened of and cruel to those with disabilities. Because those disabilities were not understood, the disabled were ignored or abused. Even today, many people feel uncomfortable or awkward around disabled people staring at them, treating them differently, or even behaving unkindly. Classifying disabled people as different makes it easier for some people to behave in a disrespectful way toward them. But it's important to remember that all people, regardless of whether they have the use of their legs or eyes, or whether they learn quickly or slowly, deserve to be treated with decency.
Why do horses sleep standing up?
Almost all horses sleep standing up because of the unique way they are built. The bones and ligaments, elastic bands that connect bones at joints, in a horse's legs lock together in a unique way, allowing its muscles to become completely relaxed while it remains standing. So the weight of a horse's body is safely suspended on its specially locked legs while it sleeps. Lying down while sleeping probably wouldn't be comfortable for a horse anyway. Horses are heavy animals with big muscles, but their bones are surprisingly delicate. Lying in one position for a long time could very likely injure a horse. Scientists think that horses developed their habit of sleeping upright as a defense mechanism, a way of protecting themselves against predators. Their speed is their main defense in the wild, and a standing position keeps a horse in a constant state of readiness to race away if danger should approach. Rising from a laying position takes the leggy beasts more time than most animals.
Why do husbands and wives divorce?
Husbands and wives divorce when they can no longer live happily together. it is usually a sad thing. Because when people marry they expect to be with their partner for the rest of their lives. But over the course of a marriage things happen and people change, and the happiness that the couple was so sure of in the beginning sometimes disappears. When couples with children get divorced, it is even more unfortunate because more people are affected. Many children feel bad when their parents divorce because their family will not be the same. After a divorce, they generally do not see one of their parents as much as they did before. Still, just because the feelings between a mother and a father change, doesn't mean that their love for their children changes in any way. It's important to remember that divorce is something that happens between a husband and wife. It has nothing to do with the kids. Many children feel that if they adjust their behavior somehow their parents will want to stay together. But divorces are not caused by anything kids do.
Why do we have daylight saving time?
Daylight saving time, DST, came about as a way to adjust clocks during the summer months, when days are longer, to make better use of the daylight hours. Countries began making such clock adjustments during World War I. 1914 to 1918, to save on the fuel needed for artificial light. If people could adjust their clocks so that it got dark at 9 p.m. instead of 8 p.m., then they could turn their lights on 1 hour later, or not at all if they simply went to bed when it got dark. These energy savings have continued today since it gets dark later in the evening. People don't turn on lights until later in the day. And in the summer, the sun rises very early and is usually up when people awake, reducing the need to turn on lights first thing in the morning. In the fall, as the days begin to get shorter, we go back to standard time, which means that the sun sets and rises at an earlier time of day. As the days get shorter, the amount of time between sunrise and sunset shrinks, so that in the heart of winter daylight arrives later in the day and departs earlier than in the spring and summer months. In the United States, daylight saving time, as decided by Congress, begins at 2 a.m. on the first Sunday in April and ends at 2 a.m. on the last Sunday in October, when DST begins. People move their clocks forward 1 hour. When it ends in October, clocks are moved back 1 hour. If you have trouble remembering which direction the clocks should go at which time of year, just think of the expression spring forward, fall back. Many other countries in the world observe some form of daylight saving time, though the exact starting and ending dates differ.
Can you figure out the temperature by listening to a cricket chirp?
Yes, the warmer the night, the faster a cricket sings. This phenomenon is so reliable that a mathematical equation can be used to calculate air temperature. Count the number of cricket chirps made in 13 seconds. And add 40, and you will get the temperature outside, in degrees Fahrenheit.
What are learning disabilities?
Learning disabilities are disorders that keep people from understanding or using spoken or written language in typical ways. Learning disabilities are not due to physical handicaps like blindness or deafness. Rather, the disorders have to do with problems in the brain and the way it perceives things. About 6% of all children in the United States have some sort of learning disability. The most common of these are dyslexia, where the brain has trouble understanding words, sometimes reversing the order of letters and words, and attention deficit disorder, AD, which is marked by an inability to concentrate. Special teaching methods have been developed that help such children learn successfully despite their disorders. This teaching is done either in the regular classroom, in special classes, or at a specialized school, depending on the severity of the disorder. It is important to identify learning disabilities early, before affected children express their frustration in bad behavior or start thinking of themselves as stupid. Most people with learning disabilities simply need help learning things in different ways, or at a different pace, from other kids. A great number of people with learning disabilities have above average intelligence. Many go on to lead very successful lives. It is believed that inventor Thomas Edison, political leader Winston Churchill, and scientist Albert Einstein all had learning disabilities. What is meant by IQ?
What are the two main groups of trees?
Trees can be classified in many different ways, but the two main groups of trees are conifers, or softwood, trees, and broadleaf, or hardwood, trees. Conifer trees bear seeds in cones and have needle-like or scale-like leaves. Most conifers are evergreen, which means that they keep their leaves throughout the year. Pines, spruces, and giant redwoods are examples of conifer trees. Broadleaf or hardwood trees have broader leaves and flowers that produce seeds. Though sometimes the flowers are so small and plain that they are hard to notice. Most broadleaf trees are deciduous, which means that, in climates that have changing seasons, they lose their leaves in the fall. In tropical climates, they keep their leaves all year long. Maples, oaks, and palms are examples of broadleaf trees. The wood that makes up the trunk and branches of conifers is generally softer and lighter than those of broadleaf trees, making softwood easier to work with in building and manufacturing. This fact, along with the conifer's quick growth, has led to a commercial industry where softwood trees are planted and raised in man-made forests. 1/4 of the world's forests, in fact, are not natural, but have been created for commercial use.